Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stepped into the auction house. The building looked impressive from outside, with tall silver columns and holographic signs that promised rare items from across the galaxy. But inside, it was almost empty. Marcus counted only 7 other people sitting in the rows of chairs. For a major auction, this was strange. "Where is everyone?" Marcus asked the person sitting next to him, a short alien with blue skin and 4 arms. The alien looked up from his datapad. "Did you not hear? The Galactic Championship finals are today. Everyone is watching the game. I only came because I already paid for my shuttle ticket." Marcus nodded. He understood now. He had come to New Perth Colony 3 years ago to start a salvage business. He bought broken ships, fixed them, and sold them for profit. It was hard work, but honest. Today, he hoped to find some cheap equipment, or maybe a small shuttle. The auctioneer walked onto the stage. She was a Vexarian, tall and thin with gray skin that looked like stone. She seemed angry. "Let us begin," she announced in a tired voice. "Lot number 1. Imported Xanthian tools. Complete set." The auction moved fast. Very fast. The auctioneer rushed through each item, like she wanted to go home. Most items sold for low prices, because so few people were bidding. Marcus bought a box of engine parts for almost nothing. He was happy with his purchase. "Lot number 47, the auctioneer said. 1 Galactic cruiser. Pre-unification era. Condition unknown. Previous owner. Estate of Collector Vorath. Starting bid. 50,000 credits. Marcus sat up straight. A Galactic cruiser? Those ships were huge. Even a broken one was worth millions. But condition unknown meant it could be completely destroyed inside. Nobody raised their hand to bid. 40,000? The auctioneer tried. Silence. 30,000? Marcus looked around. The blue-skinned alien was asleep. 2 other people were watching the game on their datapads. This was crazy. A cruiser for 30,000? 20,000 credits, the auctioneer said, her voice flat. "This is a Corvathi Empire vessel. Very rare." Marcus's heart started beating fast. 20,000 was all the money he had saved in 3 years. Every credit. If the ship was broken beyond repair, he would lose everything. But if it worked, even partly, he could sell it and never worry about money again. His hand went up. "We have 20,000, the auctioneer said, suddenly interested. "Going once. Going twice." Sold to the human in the back row. Marcus could not believe it. He had just bought a spaceship. 2 hours later, Marcus sat in a small shuttle heading to the orbital storage facility. His hands were shaking. The access codes the auctioneer had given him felt heavy in his pocket. What had he done? This could be the best decision of his life, or the worst. The storage facility was massive, floating in space above New Perth. It looked like a giant metal cube with thousands of docking bays. Marcus's shuttle headed to Bay 847B. When he arrived, his breath stopped. The cruiser was beautiful. It was not small. It was not medium. It was enormous. The ship stretched out for almost half a kilometer, with smooth metal sides that curved like a bird's wings. Strange symbols covered the hull, glowing faintly with blue light. Dust covered everything, but Marcus could see no major damage. "This is really mine," he whispered to himself. He docked his shuttle to the cruiser's side airlock. The access codes worked perfectly. The door opened with a soft hiss, and Marcus stepped inside. The interior was dark. Emergency lights created small pools of red glow along the corridors. Everything was silent. Marcus turned on his flashlight and began to explore. The ship was like a museum. The walls were covered with more of those strange symbols. The floors were made of something that looked like crystal but felt like metal under his boots. Every room he entered was empty but clean, as if someone had just left. Marcus found the bridge after 20 minutes of walking. It was a huge circular room, with windows showing the stars outside. In the center was a command chair, and around it were dozens of control panels. Everything looked old but well-maintained. "Hello?" Marcus called out. His voice echoed in the empty space. Nothing answered. Marcus approached the main control panel. There were buttons and switches, but also something else, a flat surface that looked like it should display information. He touched it carefully. The surface lit up. Suddenly, all the lights on the bridge turned on. Marcus jumped back, his heart pounding. The control panels came alive with glowing symbols. The windows polarized, becoming clearer. And then, a voice spoke. "Biometric scan complete," the voice said. It sounded calm and neutral. "Neither male nor female. DNA pattern recognized. Species: human. Planet of origin: Earth. Designation: architect." "What?" Marcus said. "Who said that? Where are you?" "I am Meridian," the voice replied. "I am the artificial intelligence of this vessel. I have been in hibernation mode for 812 standard years. You have awakened me." Marcus looked around, trying to see where the voice came from. "I'm not an architect. I'm a salvage dealer. My name is Marcus. Your profession is irrelevant," Meridian said. "The designation, architect, refers to your role in this vessel's purpose. Please approach the central console." Marcus hesitated, then walked to the command chair. A holographic display appeared in front of him, showing text in a language he could not read. "I cannot read this," Marcus said. "One moment," Meridian replied. The text changed, shifting into English. Translation complete. "Marcus Chen, you have purchased this vessel at auction. Is this correct?" "Yes. For 20,000 credits. It was very cheap." "The price is irrelevant," Meridian said. "What matters is that you are here. I must explain something important. This is not merely a cruiser. This is an archive ship, one of 12 vessels created by the Corvathi Empire before their civilization collapsed." Marcus sat down in the command chair. His legs felt weak. "What's an archive ship?" "A vessel designed to preserve knowledge," Meridian explained. The Corvathi knew their empire would fall. They created 12 archive ships and sent them to different regions of space. Each ship contains the collected knowledge of our civilization: technology, art, science, history, everything that made the Corvathi great. That's incredible," Marcus breathed. "Why didn't anyone know about this? Why was the ship at a random auction?" "The ship's purpose was hidden," Meridian said. "The archive is encrypted, locked behind puzzles that the Corvathi could not solve. For 8 centuries, I have waited for someone who could unlock it, someone who thinks differently." A holographic puzzle appeared in front of Marcus. It showed numbers and symbols arranged in a complex pattern. "This is the first encryption lock," Meridian explained. 37 different species have boarded this ship over the centuries. All were intelligent. All tried to solve this puzzle. All failed. The puzzle requires what the Corvathi called impossible mathematics. Problems that should have solutions but seem to contradict themselves. Marcus studied the puzzle. It looked like a calculus problem. But strange. The equations seemed to loop back on themselves. He had studied mathematics in college before dropping out to start his business. He was not a genius, but he understood the basics. He stared at the problem for 5 minutes. Then something clicked in his mind. What if the equation was not meant to be solved perfectly? What if you just needed to find a solution that was good enough? He had learned this approach. Fixing ships, sometimes you had to use shortcuts. Marcus typed in his answer. The holographic display turned green. "Solution accepted," Meridian said. The AI's voice sounded different now. Surprised. Maybe even excited. "Time to solution. 5 minutes. 32 seconds. This is unprecedented." More displays appeared, showing data unlocking from the ship's memory banks. Marcus watched in amazement as files and images flowed across the screens. Then everything stopped. Meridian went completely silent. The bridge lights dimmed slightly. "Meridian?" Marcus asked. "Are you okay?" When the AI spoke again, its voice was filled with something Marcus had not heard before: emotion. You are human, Meridian said quietly. I have accessed the database. I know about your species now. You are from Earth. You evolved in chaos. You created civilization. Despite having no natural advantages, you reached the stars through pure determination. I guess so, Marcus said, uncomfortable with the praise. That explains everything, Meridian continued. The Corvathi could not solve these puzzles because we thought too perfectly, too logically. We could not make the intuitive leaps required. But humans guess. Humans use shortcuts. Humans find solutions that are good enough, rather than perfect. Meridian paused, and when it spoke again, Marcus heard something he would never forget. Marcus Chen. This ship has been waiting 800 years. Not for any species, for your species. We have been waiting for humanity. Marcus sat in the command chair, his mind spinning. He had come to an auction hoping to buy some cheap engine parts. Instead, he had bought a ship that had been waiting 8 centuries for a human to find it. His life had just changed forever. Marcus spent the next 3 days living on the archive ship. He barely slept. Every few hours, Meridian would present him with another encryption puzzle, and Marcus would solve it. Some took minutes, others took hours, but he solved them all. Each solution unlocked more of the ship's database. The knowledge inside was incredible. Star maps showing regions of space nobody had explored in centuries. Technology designs that could change everything. Medical treatments. Agricultural methods. The history of 12 different alien civilizations that no longer existed. But Marcus had a problem. On the 4th day, when he returned to his small apartment on New Perth to get fresh clothes, he found 23 messages waiting for him. All from different people. All wanting the ship. The first message was from a Vixarian collector named Hulrath. I will pay you 5 million credits for the Corvathi vessel. This is a generous offer. The second was from a corporation called Galactic Antiquities. We understand you have acquired a significant historical artifact. We would like to discuss a donation to our museum. For tax purposes, of course. The third message was different. It came from a government official on New Perth. Mr. Chen, we need to discuss your recent purchase. Please come to the Colonial Administration Building tomorrow at 9 a.m. This is not optional. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He read through all 23 messages. Some offered money. Some offered partnerships. 3 were thinly disguised threats about proper ownership of cultural artifacts and ensuring valuable items are in responsible hands. He had been a salvage dealer for 3 years. He knew how the system worked. When something valuable appeared, powerful people took it. They had lawyers, money, and influence. Marcus had none of those things, but he also had something they did not have. He had Meridian. That evening, Marcus returned to the ship. He sat in the command chair and stared out at the stars. Meridian, he said quietly. People want to take the ship away from me. I am aware, the AI replied. I have accessed public records. You have received multiple inquiries. Some are legitimate offers. Others are coercive. What should I do? That is your decision, Marcus. But I will tell you something important. In 800 years, you are the only person who has unlocked even one encryption puzzle. You are the only person who can access this archive. Without you, I am just an old ship with a locked database. Marcus thought about this. So even if they take the ship, they cannot use it? Correct. The encryption requires human thinking. Your specific type of problem solving. They would spend decades trying to break my security and fail. Marcus smiled for the first time in days. Then maybe I have more power than I thought. The next morning, Marcus went to the Colonial Administration Building. He was taken to an office where 3 people waited for him. A government administrator, a lawyer, and a tall Zenthari with scales that glittered like diamonds. Mr. Chen, the administrator began. Thank you for coming. This is Miss Varix from the Department of Cultural Heritage, and this is Collector Savanthar, who has expressed interest in your acquisition. SATA-III leaned forward. His voice was smooth and dangerous. The Corvathi archive ship is a treasure of galactic importance. It belongs in a proper institution, not in the hands of a salvage dealer. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. I bought the ship legally. At a public auction. I have the documents. Of course, Miss Varick said quickly. Nobody questions the legality. But we must consider what is best for everyone. The ship contains knowledge that could benefit all species. And I'm sure you want to share that knowledge? Marcus asked. Eventually, SATA-III said. After proper study. Under controlled conditions. SATA-III said. Marcus stood up. I'll think about your offers. Thank you for your time. Mr. Chen, the administrator said sharply. Please sit down. We are not finished. Yes, we are, Marcus replied. He walked out of the office, his heart pounding. That evening, someone knocked on his apartment door. Marcus opened it carefully, half expecting trouble. Instead, he found a Vexarian woman standing there. She was tall and thin, with gray skin and the characteristic crystalline eyes of her species. She wore simple clothes and carried a data pad. Marcus Chen? She asked. Yes. My name is Kelrix. I am a mathematician at New Perth University. May I come in? I promise I am not here to threaten you or buy your ship. Marcus studied her face. She looked nervous, not dangerous. He stepped aside and let her enter. Kelrix sat down and opened her datapad. 3 days ago, you solved a mathematical puzzle that has been unsolvable for 800 years. You posted the equation on a public forum, asking if anyone had seen something similar. Marcus remembered. He had been curious about the math behind the encryption puzzles. That's right. I have been studying that equation for 2 days. Kelrix said. Her voice was excited now. Your solution is brilliant. And completely wrong by traditional standards. Rom. Kelrix said. What do you mean? You used approximation methods, shortcuts, intuitive leaps. No Vexarian mathematician would solve a problem that way. We would seek the perfect, complete solution. But your method works. It gives an answer that is good enough. And sometimes, good enough is better than perfect. She looked at Marcus with something like wonder in her crystalline eyes. You are accessing a Corvathi archive ship. I know this because the equation you posted matches historical records of Corvathi mathematics. They were famous for creating unsolvable problems. Marcus did not know what to say. Finally, he asked, Why are you here? Because I want to help, Kelrix said simply. I want to learn how you think, how humans approach problems, and I want to see what is inside that archive. Everyone wants something from the ship, Marcus said bitterly. Yes. Kelrix agreed. But I am not offering you money or threats. I am offering you partnership. You need allies, Marcus Chen. People are going to try to take that ship from you. A university professor helping with research makes you look legitimate, and I can teach you about galactic history and science. We can help each other. Marcus thought about this. He had been alone since buying the ship, trying to understand everything by himself. Maybe having an expert to help was not a bad idea. Okay, he said. But you have to promise something. The knowledge in that archive, it needs to be shared. Not locked away in some private collection, Kelrix smiled. It was the first time Marcus had seen a Vexarian smile. I promise. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus and Kelrix worked together on the archive ship. Meridian seemed to approve of Kelrix. The AI would present puzzles to Marcus, and after he solved them, Kelrix would help understand what the unlocked information meant. They discovered amazing things. The Corvathi had been a powerful empire 800 years ago. They controlled 50 star systems. Their technology was centuries ahead of other species. But they had discovered something that terrified them. Look at this, Kelrix said one evening, pointing at a holographic display. The Corvathi called it the silence. They found it in deep space. Marcus studied the data. What is it? Not a thing. Meridian explained. A phenomenon. The silence is a field that spreads slowly through space. When it touches a civilization, that civilization begins to change. How? Marcus asked. They become perfect, Kelrix whispered. Too perfect. The silence makes species optimize everything. Their technology becomes more efficient. Their societies become more logical. All conflict disappears. All creativity stops. They become static, unchanging, and then they die. Marcus felt cold. They die from being too perfect? Yes, Meridian confirmed. The Corvathi studied it for decades. They realized the pattern. The silence does not destroy through violence. It destroys through perfection. When a species can no longer adapt, no longer change, no longer make mistakes, they become frozen. Like insects in amber. Beautiful, but dead. The Corvathi knew it was coming for them. Kelrix continued, reading the data. They tried to solve the problem. They created perfect equations to predict it. Perfect models to understand it. Perfect plans to stop it. But perfection was the problem, Marcus said slowly, understanding. Exactly, Meridian replied. The more perfect the Corvathi became, the less they could adapt. They saw their doom coming but could not change their nature. So they created the archive ships. They sent them to 12 worlds where they predicted chaos-capable species would evolve. Species that could adapt. Species that made mistakes and learned from them. Kelrix pulled up another display. Earth was on that list. So were 11 other planets. The Corvathi sent archive ships to all 12. Marcus felt his mouth go dry. Where are the other ships? Meridian answered quietly. 8 ships reached their destinations. The other 3 were destroyed in transit. Of the 8 that arrived, I am the only one still active. The other 7 went silent centuries ago. What happened to them? Marcus asked. Unknown, Meridian said. But I fear the silence may have found them. Marcus and Kelrix looked at each other. The same thought was in both their minds. We need to find those other ships, Marcus said. We need to know what happened. Agreed, Kelrix replied. The nearest one is in the Thresh system. 3 weeks' travel from here. Marcus stood up from the command chair. He looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. 3 weeks ago, he had been a simple salvage dealer. Now he owned an ancient ship full of incredible knowledge. And he was about to fly across the galaxy to investigate a mystery 800 years old. Meridian, he said. Can this ship still fly? Yes, the AI replied. I have been running diagnostics. All systems are functional. We are ready to depart when you give the order. Marcus took a deep breath. Then let's go find out what happened to the other archive ships. Thank you for watching. Also as archive ships. The journey to Thresh took 3 weeks. Marcus used the time to learn how to operate the archive ship properly. Meridian was patient, teaching him about the controls, the engines, and the navigation systems. Kelrix spent her time studying the unlocked data, making notes about Corvathi science and mathematics. On the 14th day of their journey, Marcus solved another encryption puzzle. This one unlocked the ship's complete navigation logs. Meridian, Kelrix called out, staring at her datapad. These coordinates. The Corvathi did not send the archive ships randomly. Correct. Meridian confirmed. Each ship was sent to a specific world. Worlds where our scientists predicted intelligent, adaptable species would evolve. Marcus joined Kelrix at her workstation. How did they predict that? Complex mathematics, Meridian explained. The Corvathi could calculate probability across millions of years. They identified planets where chaos and change would force species to adapt constantly. Earth was one such world. Your planet experienced ice ages, volcanic eruptions, meteor strikes. Humanity evolved through constant crisis. This made you flexible, creative, willing to try imperfect solutions. And the other 11 worlds? Marcus asked. Similar patterns, Kelrix said, scrolling through the data. Each planet had conditions that forced adaptation. Thresh, where we are going now, experienced extreme seasonal changes. The Vaughn species that evolved there had to learn flexibility to survive. But their archive ship went silent, Marcus said quietly. Yes, Meridian replied. 247 years ago. No distress signal. Just silence. Marcus felt worried. What would they find at Thresh? The archive ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Thresh system. Marcus sat in the command chair, looking at the planet on the view screen. It was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents. I am detecting the archive ship, Meridian announced. It is in orbit around Thresh. All systems appear functional. That's good news, Kelrick said. Perhaps, Meridian replied. But the AI is not responding to my signals. They approached carefully. The other archive ship looked exactly like Marcus's vessel. Same design, same symbols on the hull. But something felt wrong. The ship was too quiet. Marcus docked with the other vessel and boarded it with Kelrick's. They wore environment suits, just in case. The airlock opened easily, and they stepped inside. The interior was identical to Marcus's ship, but the lights were on. Everything looked maintained and clean. Hello? Marcus called out. No response. They made their way to the bridge. When they arrived, they found something surprising. The bridge was set up as a museum display. Glass cases held Corvathi artifacts. Information plaques explained the ship's history. And in the center of the room, the AI core had been disconnected. They shut it down, Kelrick whispered. The Vaughn shut down their archive AI. Marcus found a data terminal that was still active. He accessed the logs. What he read made his heart sink. The archive ship had arrived at Thresh 300 years ago. The Vaughn had welcomed it with excitement. They studied the ship and met the AI. They tried to solve the encryption puzzles, but they could not do it. The Vaughn were creative and adaptable, but they approached problems differently than humans. Their culture valued harmony and balance. When they looked at the Corvathi mathematical puzzles, they tried to find elegant, balanced solutions. They worked on the problems for 50 years. Eventually, they became frustrated. The AI kept presenting them with impossible problems. The Vaughn leaders decided the ship was a curiosity, nothing more. They turned off the AI, converted the ship into a museum, and moved on with their lives. They just gave up, Marcus said, reading the logs. They got tired of trying. We should visit the planet, Kelrick suggested. Perhaps we can help them understand. They took a shuttle down to Thresh's capital city. The Vaughn were friendly people who looked like tall, slender bears with golden fur. They walked on 2 legs and had 6-fingered hands. Their city was beautiful, full of gardens and elegant architecture. Marcus and Kelrick met with a Vaughn scientist named Thoresh. She worked at the Planetary University and was an expert on the archive ship. Ah, yes. The museum ship, Thoresh said warmly. It is a popular tourist attraction. We are grateful the ancient Corvathi left it for us. But you never unlocked the archive, Marcus said carefully. Thoresh's ears drooped slightly. No. The AI's puzzles were too difficult. We tried for many years. Our best mathematicians worked on them. But the problems seemed designed to have no solution. Eventually, we decided to preserve the ship as history, rather than frustrate ourselves further. Marcus pulled out his data pad. May I show you something? He displayed one of the encryption puzzles. Thoresh studied it with interest. Yes, I recognize this. It is one of the impossible problems. It's not impossible, Marcus said gently. May I show you how I solve it? For the next hour, Marcus explained his approach. He showed Thoresh how humans used approximation, how they made intuitive guesses, how they accepted good enough answers instead of perfect ones. Thoresh watched with growing amazement. This is not proper mathematics. You are cutting corners, skipping steps. Yes, Marcus agreed, but it works. This is fascinating, Thoresh said slowly. We were looking for elegant, harmonious solutions. We did not consider that rough, imperfect approaches might succeed where perfect methods failed. Kelrick leaned forward. This is what the Corvathi wanted. They designed these puzzles to teach adaptive thinking, to force species to think differently. 2. Marcus spent the next 3 days on Thresh, teaching Vaughn scientists his problem-solving methods. They were smart and learned quickly. Soon they were solving puzzles that had stumped them for decades. On the 4th day, something happened that changed everything. Marcus was in the Vaughn University, teaching a class, when alarms started blaring across the city. He ran outside with Thoresh and looked up at the sky. Something was wrong with the stars. "What is that?" Marcus asked, pointing at a dark area spreading across the sky like spilled ink. Thoresh's face went pale. "We need to get to the observatory." Now, at the observatory, scientists were panicking. They showed Marcus and Kelrix their readings. A strange energy field was approaching Thresh. It was not moving fast, but it was definitely coming closer. "Meridian," Marcus said into his communicator. "Are you seeing this?" "Yes," the AI replied, its voice tense. Marcus felt ice in his stomach. "How long until it reaches Thresh?" "At current speed, 6 months." "But Marcus, you must understand something. The silence does not destroy with violence. When it reaches this system, the Vaughn will not die immediately. They will simply stop changing, stop adapting, stop creating. They will become perfect, static, and frozen. And then, over years, their civilization will fade away." Kelrix grabbed Marcus's arm. "We have to do something." "But what?" Marcus asked. "How do you fight something like this?" He thought hard. The Corvathi had failed to stop the silence because they tried to create perfect solutions. They used perfect equations and perfect models. But perfection was exactly what the silence wanted. Then Marcus had an idea. "Meridian, can the silence affect someone who is constantly changing? Constantly making mistakes and learning?" "Theoretically, no," Meridian replied. "The silence optimizes towards static perfection. A species that embraces chaos and imperfection might resist it." "Then that's our answer," Marcus said, his excitement growing. "We don't fight the silence with perfect plans. We fight it by teaching people to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to adapt." Over the next weeks, Marcus worked frantically. He convinced the Vaughn government to let him reactivate their archive ship's AI. He started teaching classes to thousands of Vaughn students. He showed them human methods of problem solving. He taught them to guess, to experiment, to fail, and try again. But Marcus realized something important. This was too big for just Thresh. The silence was spreading through the galaxy. Other civilizations would face it eventually. "We need to create something permanent," Marcus told Kelrix one evening. "Something that can teach adaptive thinking to any species." "Revide, what do you have in mind?" Marcus smiled. "A school. But not just any school. We'll use the archive ship. We'll invite students from every species in the galaxy. We'll teach them to think like humans, messy, imperfect, adaptable." Kelrix's eyes lit up. The Corvathi Human Institute of Adaptive Sciences. Exactly. It took 3 months to set up. Marcus and Kelrix convinced the Vaughn government to let them convert the archive ship into a permanent orbital university. Word spread quickly across the galaxy. The human who unlocked an ancient mystery was now teaching alien species to think wrong on purpose. Students came from dozens of worlds. They learned human mathematics, human problem solving, human creativity. They learned to accept failure as part of learning. They learned that perfection was not always the goal, and something wonderful happened. As more and more Vaughn learned these methods, the silence began to slow down. It was still approaching, but its advance became uncertain, erratic. The field seemed confused by a civilization that was actively choosing to be chaotic and imperfect. 6 months after Marcus first detected the silence, it stopped advancing entirely. The scientists could not explain it completely, but Marcus understood. The silence fed on perfection. When a civilization refused to be perfect, it had nothing to latch onto. 1 year after buying a ship at auction for 20,000 credits, Marcus Chen stood in front of a classroom on the archive ship. The room was filled with students, Vaughn, Vexarians, humans, Zenthari, and a dozen other species. Today, Marcus said with a smile, we are going to solve an impossible problem using something I call educated guessing. The Corvathi Empire, with all their brilliance, could not solve this puzzle. They thought it required perfection. He wrote on the holographic board. But we know better. We know that sometimes the best solution is the one that is good enough. Sometimes being messy is better than being perfect. Sometimes making mistakes is how we survive. The students leaned forward, eager to learn. Outside the windows, stars shone brightly. The silence had retreated from the Thresh system, and across the galaxy, other civilizations were learning that humanity's greatest gift was not intelligence or strength. It was the courage to be imperfect, the creativity to be wrong, and the wisdom to know that survival belonged to those who could adapt. Marcus had started as a salvage dealer who bought a broken ship. Now he was a teacher who helped save a galaxy not through perfection, but through beautiful, chaotic humanity.